is now your English interpreter speaking. Can you hear us comfortably? Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to look at solution proposals in formal and non-formal education.
Merhabalar, hoş geldiniz.
Hello, welcome. Sorry for the delay. So very briefly, let me introduce myself. My name is Erdem. I am working for the Yuva Association as the project coordinator. I'd like to welcome you once again. For the opening speeches, we will start and then we will have a panel, but I would like to provide technical information. Our panel will be in 2 languages, and we have COSA members from Italy. We have colleagues and speakers from abroad. For that reason, if you need interpretation, please give your ID, and from the technical team, please receive your headphones.
From the technical team in exchange of your ID. Zoom'da katılımcılarımız
And
var.
if you are participating from Zoom, I would like to welcome you too. And if you need interpretation, please click the English members working in the civil society field. We have trainers and educators and participants who are individually interested in this field. We are also broadcasting from Zoom, like I said, and after the opening speeches, we will start our panel at 11 o'clock, and we will tackle the issue together with our distinguished speakers. And there will be a half an hour question and answer section for your participation, and then between 12:30 and 1:30, we will have a lunch break. Informally, you may also continue to exchange your opinions during the lunch break. And after that, we will meet with COSA members, and between 1:30 and 3:30, we will have 2 meetings. And as COSA, we will discuss what we can do to increase our learning. If you're not a COSA member, if you are interested, you can still participate in this meeting as observants, and I will also provide this information at the end of the panel. And before the panel, we have guests for opening speeches from European Union, Turkey delegation, education for climate, Gökçe Aktaş, and this project is part of a European Union support. And from Kyoto Club, we have Sergio Andres, a project partner, and we will hear this speech, and he is with us as well. This project is conducted with Kyoto. And after that, I will provide you with brief information about the project. We would like to talk about the gainings so far, and then I will leave the word to our panelists. This is the agenda briefly, so if ready, I would like to leave the word to Ms. Özge. Hello, Özge. Hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to greet everyone respectfully on behalf of European Union Turkey delegation and all COSA members, Kyoto Protocol Global, and all the participants. I wish all participants an efficient and auspicious panel. In fact, when it comes to environmental literacy, it is quite popular across the world and in Turkey. It is not personally my expertise, but I would like to tell why we started to support this project. The European Union Turkey delegation in recent years has been intensively working on civil society, non-governmental organizations in terms of the environmental sector. And especially at recent times, the Green Deal has been very much a priority for the European Union. And in both the civil area and business world, in addition to the public industry, the necessary capacity should be established. And we are conducting a lot of studies together. And we appreciate the active effort of this organization, and we believe that this potential should be evaluated much better because there is more to do in this field. That is why we decided to support these programs, and we are designing programs in an aim to support. In 2018, we created Networks and Platforms grant, and this is one of our sub projects. And there is also another benefit. It is different from other projects because when we say environment, it's not only the responsibility of environmental organizations or civil society organizations, but in fact, we want to break this perception because environmental responsibility belongs to everyone, not just non-governmental organizations or environmental organizations. And we see that if everyone is involved, these projects can be much more successful. And actually, we observed and confirmed that these projects yield better results with the involvement of all parties. And for this project, they have gaining. And for this, I would like to thank Kyoto Club and Yuva Association and COSA members, all other organizations contributing to this project. I would like to thank on behalf of myself and the organization. We were so happy to see the positive results of this project, and we wish that these results will multiply. I don't want to prolong my words further. I would like to wish you a successful panel and have a good day. Thank you very much, Ms. Özge. Now I would like to leave the word to Kyoto Club Project Director Sergio Andres. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning, good evening to everybody. My name is Sergio Andres. I'm director of Kyoto Club, which has been the partner from Italy in the ELN project. Together with me today, there is also Eugenio. You can see him there. He's responsible for our international relations in Kyoto Club. And 7 other colleagues from different organizations that have been taken part either in the study visits or in the networking at large. Now, let me first thank and express our gratitude to the European Commission for the support, the delegation in Ankara, but also in the other offices, for the support they have given for making it possible. In fact, the beginning with the COVID-19 pandemics, it was particularly complicated, but we managed with a short prolongation of 6 months to implement all the foreseen activities. Now, from our observation point, from our point of view, all the direct and indirect beneficiaries in Italy and at the EU level have expressed great interest and enthusiasm towards the building up of this cooperation. As Kyoto Club is an Italian non-profit organization created in 1999 after the approval of the Kyoto Protocol upon the initiative of Venice Industrialists organization, which is quite peculiar because they pose themselves as business companies. What is the approval of the Kyoto Protocol, and what does this whole discussion on climate change mean for us in terms of corporate social responsibility, but also a possible new business? Now, 1999, this was a very restricted discussion. So in that sense, we were honored when our head of state received us for the 20th anniversary of the activities of Kyoto Club in Rome. And he said, I wanted to meet and exchange ideas with you because Kyoto Club has been a road opener. All the more because our members, at the beginning 3, now it's over 170 business companies, municipalities, research institutes, and educational networks. All the more because the composition is basically, in English, you would say progressive business companies. But we have among our members all the main Italian energy efficiency, sustainable development, economic actors, all engaged in reaching the Kyoto Protocol that was in force until 2020, then the Paris Agreement, and the European Green Deal. So, in one word, decarbonization, because we know that the cause of climate change and the more and more catastrophic effects are fossil fuels. So we need to decarbonize, substitute fossil fuels with renewable energies, energy efficiency, innovation, all factors from our point of view which allow also a better quality of life. Now, education is of course key, and that's why we have with great gratitude towards Yuva, which asked us to be partner in this project. We've joined with great conviction. In the bags, you will find the result of our work. You have a document in the bag called Environmental Sustainability Education Advocacy and Policy Document, which represents the summary of what we have been finding through the study visits, through the exchange and meetings, networking, and it has all been summarized in this document that we leave with you. I will stop here. We are grateful and hope that for the future there will be a follow-up, because as I said, from our point of view, all the partners and organizations and municipalities we have been in touch with in Italy, specifically Rome and Bologna, where the 2 Italian study visits took place with Turkish colleagues, and in Brussels, where we had a chance to meet and exchange opinions with Directorate Generals of the European Commission, but also with the EU networks interested in developing networking and cooperation with Turkey, which is a constant part of Kyoto Club's work. If you want, then in the groups we can go into details, but we do believe that the European Union needs Turkey, at least as much as Turkey needs the European Union. So we have been among the first organizations in Italy and therefore in the EU to foster dialogue at the civil society level between the two geographic areas. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.
Bir kez daha teşekkür ederim Sergio.
Thank you once again, Sergio, and all the Kyoto Club team. It was great to work with you and cooperate with you. Now, I would like to share my presentation, and I would like to touch upon the outputs, the results of our project very briefly. But I couldn't do it. Okay, now it works. Oh, but this doesn't work. Okay. So very briefly, let me talk about the Yuva Association. As Yuva Association, we have been working since 20 10, and we are not only focusing on ecology, we also focus on human rights and eliminating poverty and ecology. We are producing holistic solutions to problems. We are a non-governmental organization, mostly focusing on adult learning, and we are using non-formal learning methods, and we try to handle these issues altogether. And later I will show you a video about this. As for our project, it is about the environmental literacy communication network project. It started in 2020. Of course, as you know, after we started the project, the pandemic broke out and we started to do our activities online. We could progress without any problem. We established it in 2020, and over the years, a lot of civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and municipalities became our members, mostly from Turkey, but also from Italy, Bulgaria, and the European Union. Overall, we have members. We also have members from Germany. We have in total 80 members. Our basic objective is to revisit our relationship with nature, and we also aim to focus on the relationship between nature and human beings in a critical perspective. And we aim to create environmental literacy so that individuals have more responsible steps towards the environment. And our purpose is to join forces as non-governmental organizations, and we aim to increase our capacity and to conduct advocacy in this regard. For this person, we had capacity building workshops, and most of our friends here participated in the online capacity building workshops and also face-to-face workshops, and they were in different areas, for example, financial sustainability, social impacts, and campaign and communication. And we conducted these workshops based on needs analysis. At the same time, we also focused on online meetings because of the COVID-19. We said, why don't we have more online activities? That's why for the first 2 years, we had online meetings based on the areas that we determined as needed. This was on volunteerism and climate and peace. For example, we see COP26 for NGOs. We discussed climate agenda and what we could do, and this is an image from the COSA meeting. And this workshop was on campaign building and communication. This was an online activity as well. In addition to that, we also developed education programs together. Our project's aim was to provide children about 13 years old and young adults with education programs. And we had 2 topics, climate literacy, and the other topic was sustainability and ecological literacy. So these were actually programs related to each other. In total, we developed 4 education programs, and they included non-formal education methods. And you can see the handbooks of our educators. These are the covers of our 2 books. In addition to that, we had trainings for educators, and 89 COSA members and representatives were provided with 4 education clubs, and the first 2 were online and the last 2 were face-to-face. And again, we have our educators here who received this program. Our purpose is to create a trainers pool. This is not only us to provide education, but we want to increase the capacity of trainers and educators within the scope of Yuva and COSA, and together we can reach more people thanks to this education of educators and trainers. And we can see the workshop pictures from the trainers training, and together with these trainers we started dissemination trainings. What we mean by this? We mean we provide this education to those in need, universities, schools, and this education is based on, like I said, climate literacy and sustainability and ecological literacy. And these trainings were provided to more than 1,400 children and young adults. We believe that our trainings are effective based on our feedbacks and comments, and we apply different assessment methods. More than 80% of the participants say that they had a change in their life. In the assessment forms, they acquired new information and they implemented them in their life. At the same time, we are implementing participatory methods. That's why they say that they're very satisfied with the trainings. This is the image from the online training, and from the left-hand side, this is on your right, we see the first face-to-face training. and this was in March 2022. And we also have trainings for local administrations. We conducted 10 for local administrations. This was in cooperation with municipalities and city councils, and we reached in total to 200 local administrations. This is from Bandırma City Council and Kadıköy trainings. And we also conducted communication studies. We created an animation film for children, and we created the content together with COSA members. And we focused on climate change, biological diversity, and sustainable environmental sustainability in these 3 animation films. And we reached over 20,000 people in both Turkey and Italy with subtitles. And these are the images from the study. And study visits was mentioned by Sergio. We conducted 3 visits and we discussed good practices in Europe, and we could see them on spot. They were about sustainability, climate change, reduction, global citizenship, European Union, climate and environment studies. We had 3 outputs, and we will soon share them with our stakeholders: sustainable development investments and solutions, Italy best practices, climate change, compatibility strategy, Bologna example. Bologna is very advanced in this regard. That's why we were there, and we had the chance to observe personally, and environmental sustainability and climate change methodology guide. We also conducted advocacy studies. We had online and face-to-face advocacy workshops together with our stakeholders, and we discussed who and what we demand in Turkey in the field of environmental education. We created our demands and developed policy proposals. And today you have in your bags the document, as Sergio said. This is an environmental sustainability education, advocacy, and policy document. And this is one image from that workshop. And today we are holding this conference as the final event of our project. However, we do not think to stop here. We believe that COSA is very effective, and it has been 3 years and 9 months, and still we receive a significant amount of demand from COSA members, and we have demands from our side as well. That's why we want to continue with COSA. In the meeting in the afternoon today, we will discuss how to continue. And if there are organizations that are not members of COSA here, you can write to us. And if you support our founding purpose from Turkey and Europe, associations, foundations, and non-governmental organizations, platforms, professional organizations, city councils, and local administrations can be members to COSA, and you can reach us from cosa@yuva.org.com. Despite the delay, I finished on time. I hope this was not very boring to you. Now we will proceed with the panel, but before that we have a video, and then I will leave the floor to Erdem. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merhabalar, hoş geldiniz. Ben Erdem Vardar, Yuva Derneği kurucu direktörüyüm. Panelimize geçeceğiz. Ben panelistlerimizi tanıtmadan önce bir kısa belki bizim bu küresel okuryazarlık ağı, ekolojik eğitimler, bununla ilgili yolculuğumuzdan biraz bahsetmek isterim. Küresel okuryazarlık ağı dedik. İngilizcesine ise Environmental Literacy Network dedik. Peki Türkiye'de ya da biz buna niye küresel okuryazarlık, niye okuryazarlık kelimesini kullandık? Biraz bundan bahsedeyim. Bir kere Tercümede bir takılma var galiba.
Can you hear me? I think you can hear me now. My apologies for getting muted. Literacy, we are using the word literacy because this is something that should be known to everyone as a basic information, and it doesn't have to be known in all its technicalities. Just to give an example, earthquake-related things need to be known by every individual. So how this world operates and how we interact with nature as human beings require us to acquire basic knowledge very urgently. That's what we deemed important in this journey. Also, when it comes to adult learning or non-formal learning, just like we have a literacy movement in the past, just as we delivered such trainings in the past in Turkey, we thought that we should also deliver such a training. That's why we chose the word literacy. Let's look at the global aspect as well. Here we are talking about not just globalization itself, we are talking about developing a world citizenship, an earth citizenship. And here there are different approaches. For example,
Ki şimdi
we were
Reverse.
talking about a universe, but now people are referring to multiple universes. So here, this is not just about a global literacy having only a Western perspective, but a globalization that touches upon different realities of the world. So that's the sort of citizenship we want to create by making such trainings commonplace, or education programs commonplace. Another important side of our programs is that we try to be holistic. So this, we look at it not just from a human perspective, but also the natural perspective or perspective of the nature, defending every organism's right to life and being actually a part of the same ecosystem. Here, Burcu, Meltem, Arık will probably refer to citizenship concept, and we are talking about the same sort of citizenship in relation to the earth. And when it comes to our methodology, we are talking about transformative learning. What does it mean? Actually, rather than just keeping up with the development of the world, we're talking about creating individuals that can transform the world. So, transformative learning, as it is defined in English, was what impacted us. So as Yuva Association, we started this initiative 10 years ago, especially NGOs working on the environment met with us, and we had a few meetings, but we weren't able to carry on this process. So the EU's support under the networks and platform concept is a big opportunity, and actually this shows us how much appealing this team is for everyone, because this network has now over 80 members, but our goal is to ensure that first our goal was, I mean, lower than that. So there's a big request from various organizations. So actually this is this sort of request that hasn't been met yet. That's why we need to talk about it definitely with us, and we should understand how we can develop it further and how we can proceed further in more detail. We took steps in that direction, and I hope that all of us will contribute to the works, the efforts about environmental education in Turkey. Ece already referred to many other events we held where we had concrete, for example, recommendations about environmental policy, environment. We had a policy document which are present in your bags. Also, we prepared a proposed directive for education, especially non-formal education, and you can access all of them at yuvam.org. All are not printed, but you can find the soft versions on our website. Also, for this policy document, I would like to refer to a few proposals we have been underlining. I would like to read them. First, sustainable environmental education should be shaped with an understanding of global citizenship and approaches to environment, and it should emphasize gender equality in teachers and learners rather than creating eco concerns. We should equip them with motivations and skills to resolve environmental problems. Second, we should create sustainable learning environments to support this education process. So we should have an all-inclusive approach. All-inclusive means teachers, students, and parents being a part of the learning environments and making them greener and more environmental. Here we talk about schools and formal education institutions as well. The third point reads as such. In all the processes related to such education processes, all the participants, especially youth, should be accepted as individuals who play a major role. The fourth one says lifelong learning policies should be uh, developed in line with the frameworks developed by the European Union and United Nations, and we will already refer to those frameworks very soon. Also, in this document, there is referral to local and national educational institutions. You can find more concrete proposals about them. And here we have, if we have participants from local and international institutions, please examine them. Actually, as COSA network, we will continue to express these requests and recommendations in different platforms. Last but not least, I would like to again refer to a few examples that have impressed us in the last few years. As I stated, you can find the details of these examples on our website. But if you ask who did what, for example, one of the most impressive exemplary projects for me was uh, the Kilowatt Center in Bologna. Actually, this is about the transformation of a dialect building as the municipality allocates this building to a social project so that this place can be made a common working place. But at the same time, in this example, we see actually a very environmental practice as we work there. This is not an educational center, but in an informal way, it is able to provide the sort of system that can inform you accordingly. Or in Brussels, European Adult Education Union now aspire to make all the education centers greener buildings, and also they have Smile project, which aim to create an all-inclusive approach with institutions. Also, we saw other examples in schools. For example, this one is from the US. Uh, the lunches were provided free of lunch and they included natural nutrients. This was a campaign all over California and it turned out to be successful. Of course, together with that food stuff, the students were informed about where the food originated from and the circumstances about their production. So environmental and ecological information was also duly provided. I would like to wrap up my part here. Also, we can refer to the Germany's Ministry of National Education and Sustainable Education related action plan. And Switzerland also has an environmental education council which brings together all the stakeholders together, and this national coordination structure refers to sustainable education or environmental education by creating contents and by designing teacher content. So this is actually a multi-stakeholder structure serving coordination purposes as well as providing action plans in Europe. So this marks the end of my remarks. Now, I would like to introduce our first speaker, dear Burcu Meltem Arık, who will tell us about formal education and sustainable environmental education. She is also a very close friend of mine. Education Reform Initiative and Education Observatory Coordinator since 2002. She has been a part of Sabancı University's formal education, and she has been conducting data-based monitoring efforts, sustainability education, environmental education, climate change training, let's say, nature games, biological literacy are all her fields of study. She also served at many NGOs, and she's a part of the board. She's a board member of many national and international bodies. Burcu, welcome. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Erdem. Actually, this has been a very exciting introduction, and I listened to all of you. My apologies for not making it there because I have a broken ankle as well as a crack in my knee, but still, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to think together with you remotely. As Erdem stated, I think we can think about and discuss the topics he has referred to. I would like to be a part of this event in the afternoon as well, but hopefully I will learn about the as the topics and I will be able to contribute more. I will now be telling you about the post higher education process. We are actually a small team, but we try to ensure that all the children in Turkey can have access to quality education without discrimination. We monitor such processes and we discuss what needs to be done to improve education with different stakeholders, and we conduct advocacy activities accordingly. I would like to especially explain what areas of education we focus, because all the topics we discuss need to be designed and planned in a holistic way, as Erdem stated in his speech. So we can only make this happen with an inclusive approach. We look at the financing of education, what is earmarked, how the education process is monitored, what financing distribution allocation we see in terms of climate education, environmental education in the educational system. Unless, even if we don't make direct environmental financing follow-up, we must ensure that we look at these aspects, because this is one of the most important indicators of making plans materialize. I'm sure you hear in the news that Ministry of National Education submits its budget for the next year, because this is a budget preparation process. We also look at teacher policies in any sense. We try to understand how teacher well-being is, teacher trainings in profession trainings, well-being trainings, and all the rights of the teachers. Also, the educational content is one of the most critical topics. So when it comes to environmental education, we again look at the Ministry of Education, because it is the institution we think of in a formal education context. So our reflex is to understand whether we can make a difference by changing the curriculum. I'm saying this especially for Turkey, but it is not an area that will suffice by itself. It is not that of a critical area by itself. As for educational areas, Erdem referred to very nice examples, also referring to California, and in climate education and nutrition and renewable energy resources, California is a pioneering area. So it would be great to examine schools from this perspective. Also, during my thesis, I had an interview with Erdem discussing all these aspects, and I would like to underline something stated by him again, because this should be the due approach, which is installing solar energy panels on top of the buildings would not suffice by itself. Kids should know how that electricity is generated and how it can be made commonplace in their neighbors. So we should have this sort of holistic approach so that we can make this process all the more meaningful. And I appreciate his insights on this issue. Also, of course, the educational output like textbooks, nutrition, and dormitories are all the areas we follow. You can see it in our publications. As we follow up on formal education this way, global citizenship or Earth citizenship, as Erdem stated, need to be integrated to all these dimensions. So we look at the challenges and opportunities, and that's what I will be talking about. So please warn me about the duration, but I would like to refer to certain concepts and terminology so that we can first develop awareness before creating systems. I think one of the most fundamental concepts in this sense, uh, the purpose of formal education in this challenging process, because that's how the entire system is set up. And here, how humans are positioned is critical. I'm sure you are all familiar with this process. Here, the approach actually takes people, places people at the basis. The economy also is approached the same way. So in educational uh, environments and in other educational financing procedures, you see that. But we are nature. We are a part of the nature, but we are not aware of this because it is not included in the educational system, or we forgot it over time. There are many societies and communities who maintain such an understanding, and there are others who try to revitalize it. But I think they also suffer from what I call intentional, uh, actually, intentional ignorance. Education, healthcare, economy. You can think about all the systems. Now, I would like to tell you about what I mean by referring to this intentional intentional uh, actually intentional ignorance. Intentional obsolescence is a very good concept in that sense with energy production. So actually we are encouraged to use items that make a huge consumption of electricity, and the things become a center of consumption in our lives. But we don't see it in nature. We don't see waste. You see anything being produced with the energy resources around. So deliberate obsolescence, I think, can be likened to this environmental awareness in education. And I will share a few slides to show you what I really mean. So in this sense, if educational system highlights that everything is for human beings, then it must also actually should know that this is a part of the human nature and that this is about deliberate forgetfulness. If you look at schools and question how integrated they are to life, Actually, they are very disconnected from life and neighborhood. Of course, there are exceptions to that too. Now, I will show you a slide which I share very frequently. Maybe you encountered with it previously, but still I care because this is one of the most striking photos. Here you see two brothers with such hair. They are in canyon. Unfortunately, a thunder struck them, but they are smiling. If they had knowledge about nature, about our environment, about the geography and such, these children will know that their hair uh, is getting ionized and that they would maybe flee this scene because of a thunder. Actually, the geography tells them to run away, but they are smiling. A similar example can be seen here. Actually, the recommendations we make for such disconnect lead to other problems. Certain practices to ensure that kids love animals may give certain covered messages. So when it comes to citizenship, education, in terms of formal and non-formal education, we should question to what extent we know our environment. These are all critical questions, in my opinion, because these are the starting premises: who we are, where we live, what we aim is all critical. Here you see the diversity, the plant diversity in Anatolia. We think that in the south we have pines and rainforests in the north, but we have a lot of other colors, and actually diversity becomes stronger at the intersections. And we live in such a geography about which we don't have a big awareness. I think I paused my screen, right? Are we back to me? Are we back
Mesajı biriniz ses
to me?
versin.
Döndük sen.
I can't see. Yes, we are back to you. I can't see the screen. Okay, great. So actually, this information about the plain position of role is great because we are in an Anthropocene age. We say that Turkey is one of the regions which are impacted by environmental change, climate change the most. We should have it in mind, stop this process, and also try to reverse it as we design our educational curricula and programs. We experienced forest fires, floods. We talk about food scarcity, unfortunately, also earthquakes. And earthquakes, as you know, exacerbate the impact of the climate change. If you think about Antakya and Maraş in Turkey, this was heavily impacted by
Daha fazla
earthquake, and the situation was worsened there. It is considered that we will have more crises, and we need to have this sort of educational system, design this sort of educational system that refers to this awareness. I will discuss two concepts with you. First, how we can integrate global citizenship to formal education system. Uh, Actually, I can refer to an example by Professor Aykut Çoban, as he initiates a very good discussion. We place ecocentricity against human centricity, but when you place a center, you turn the other one into a periphery, and the conflict you're trying to resolve gets triggered again. Uh, Indeliberately. So you are positioning people and nature against each other. You're pitting them against each other. That's why we should think about a decentralized structure so that we can get outside this discussion conflict. I think we can discuss it, but I believe this is a very important approach. The second concept is, again, the holistic nature of education. Regardless of what stakeholder we discuss, we need to discuss certain biases and prejudices as well. This is about who people are, how we position them, where we position children, what kind of nomenclature we use for nature. I mean, are kids actually personalities to fill with a lot of information, or do we see them as partners? Do we see them as our counterparts? We need to look at all these in a transparent way. So, as Erdem stated, and as the next speakers will highlight, global citizenship also means that actually teachers, students, and the planet itself appear as the most important actors, because I'm talking about from a formal education perspective, I'm referring to these players. So I think it's inevitable and critical that we learn from the planet itself, and that we should look at all the dimensions of education in doing so, as this is going to accelerate us with textbooks, school gardens, nutrition, renewable energy, content, teacher training. We need to address this holistic issue with all its dimensions. Let's remember this when we talk about world citizenship. And by the way, I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to this conference in October. Here, we need to pay attention to not only each one of us, but also all the creatures and organisms. We should understand that we have this mutual relationship with them today and tomorrow. So we need to understand how we can create such a world through education by referring to best practices and examples, and we can do that. We can support this process by learning from the planet as well. If only, I mean, as long as associations and NGOs like COSA can share such experiences and make it accessible to all the parties. And Erdem has shared great examples previously. So the learnings of the planet should be positioned at the center of human learnings, not having waste, having recycling, using energy in the local sense, and using green energy are all the principles of life we can place at the center of the educational system from end to end. As you know, the economy has a growth focused approach, and unfortunately, it has been devastating our planet. So, when it comes to being a world citizenship, we are talking about the balance approach rather than the growth approach. Maybe even by getting a little smaller, we, I think, need to discuss how we can do it through education, as asking this question itself presents an opportunity for education. All the creatures, people, and other species are connected with each other, and that all the living and non-living networks are intertwined with each other. And I think education is one of the areas to make this fact visible. That's why the example at the beginning is critical. We can do all this by doing. This is not just about placing a panel on top of the building, but rather explain the mechanism whereby individuals can apply it to other places and contexts that educational system would help us. I don't know where I stand in terms of my duration, but we value this and we will discuss it further in the educational reform initiative. Hopefully, we will discuss it with COSA. Education has this active citizenship approach. Actually, this is not discussed anymore in Turkey, but active citizenship should be turned into active world citizenship with different dimensions of education. So it's critical that we think about it and we do that together. I wish you all a great day. Thank you very much, Burcu. We don't want to see you off. We will have a Q&A part as well. But now I will invite Bahar Özay. Bahar Özay will tell us about sustainable development goals and universities, and she will refer to the environmental education from that perspective. She's serving at SDSN Turkey network, reporting to the United Nations within Boğaziçi University. Boğaziçi University Lifelong Learning Center and Education for Sustainable Development are the concepts she works on with schools, with teachers, NGOs, companies, and other institutions. She develops content and lectures on these areas. Also, climate change and policy research institution of Boğaziçi University is another organization. She's a member of. Bahar, you have many hats and you have the floor.
I think you can hear me, right? So thank you very much, dear Erdem. Thank you very much. I'm grateful. And at the heart of this series, there is education, and education communication is critical. In fact, I'm coming from the banking industry, banking sector, finance, and I need to say what I have to say at the end rather than the beginning. As Erdem said, this is an investment policy, and it is just like the Kyoto Protocol established after the investment policy. So do how are business people affected by the Kyoto Protocol? So this initiative was started by this, and we are so happy that this has turned into a European Union project. I have some friends that I know here. We have professors that we work here. There are non-governmental organizations. We have colleagues from public institutions and municipalities. And creating this environment, as Burcu mentioned just a while ago, allows us to talk more about the topic and to exchange opinions. I want to make a presentation that is long but also short. I want to show the beginning part and the point that we have come, and I would like to make the connections as dear Burcu mentioned, because if we are not able to make the connection, it's just for the sake of doing, and we believe that we are developing skills or building skills, but sometimes we are not able to do this even if we have money. That's why I want to show why education is so critical. And if I go beyond my time, dear Erdem, please warn me. I hope I will use this properly. Yes, my name is Bahar Özay. I work for United Nations initiative under the roof of Boğaziçi University. Some of you know that UN Global Compact. It is the same initiative within the scope of universities for companies, because the purpose is to make sure that companies do not harm nature and environment. However, they have to grow for their economic benefit. For that reason, with innovation and technology and innovation, we have to discuss this in the academy. It doesn't have to be an advanced innovation. Sometimes we learn a very good solution from a little child. That's why it is important to realize all these and to make connections noticeable through education, because we have damaged the environment. Dear Burcu mentioned, with Anthropocene, we created this imbalance. There were so many reports being published. We have overlapping crises. Unfortunately, we had 2 earthquakes on the 6th of February, and we had certain problems coming with the climate crisis in Maraş and in Urfa, and in Hatay, in Antakya, we had significant, serious problems, extreme problems because of the climate change, and we are still witnessing the effects of this. And on top of that, we also have droughts. As dear Burcu mentioned just a while ago, we have our drought map. We are very good in terms of biodiversity map, but when it comes to drought, I will not show you this right now, but hopefully I will be able to show this map to you on another occasion. For that reason, from climate and environment, actually, we put at the end these issues, but in fact, environment is at the center of our life, because environmental issues disrupt society. We have economic problems and we have health crisis. You will remember the pandemic, because The pandemic has given us the opportunity to experience a lot of things. Even if we have money, we cannot solve problems. And we have complex problems. They come on top of each other. In a period where we are not able to cope up with this complexity, we are looking for ways to create a new world and to prepare our young people, children, and elderly to prepare them to this world if they are not able to go out of home. Man or woman or an elderly person, how can we reach them? And there, of course, there is social and political polarization. Communication is a bit dangerous, but it is so beneficial on the other hand, and language we use is quite important. Inequalities are increasing, but at this point, we have to be more responsible. With COVID, we have economic stagnation, we experience the climate crisis, and biodiversity is also bringing up certain problems, and we experience them all. And at this point, of course, in 2019, when no one heard us, we had to take responsibilities. By the end of 2019, I was talking to students at Yeditepe University. We were talking about sustainable development and health, and they said, what will happen? One student, we said, this is December. How are we going to cope up with this COVID if it spreads to the world? And then we all know we were stuck home for 2 years. Now we have a triple planet crisis, and Yuva Derneği, the Yuva Association, created this communication project. And with the support of partners and stakeholders, we had the opportunity to communicate and to tackle the issues in local and global levels. Of course, there is eco concern. And how are we supposed to cope up with this? We have to focus on how to develop our teachers as well. These are urgent issues. As you know, in Greece, floods started. We witnessed the Daniel storm hitting Libya, and more than 20,000 people were affected. This is because of the poor infrastructure. Unfortunately, our environment is always shaken by crisis. May God forbid, what were we going to do if this was in Turkey, in the Aegean region? We already have agricultural issues, grave agricultural issues. We have been talking about them for a long time, but we still put so much pressure on the world. And we do this by being aware. And right now, we have to explain how this situation will harm us. We have to internalize, and in every step that we take, we have to know and we have to explain to the entire society that we are going beyond the limits of the world, and that's why we had this Planet 9 limits from the North SDSN. In 2019, this study was conducted. It is titled as the limits of the planet. In fact, in 1972, there was a study about the growth and the limits, the borders of the world. This was a complementary study to that study that was conducted in 1979, and 6 borders have been passed, and this is critical, they say. What does that mean? Well, we discussed this, and you are listening very well, but what is the effect on us? Let's ask this question. And in our trainings, educations, we try to explain this. This means mucilage, and this means pollution. And because of pollution, Marmara Sea is actually creating problems because of the sea snot, the mucilage. Erdem, by the way, congratulations for the report and the policies. We have to start open demands in this regard because it is critical in terms of ensuring the environmental and ecological sustainabilities. Otherwise, if we do not take steps, the R6 report was published this year. You must have heard this. Municipalities are closely following this within the framework of SECA projects. In 1950, a kid born in 2022 will get rid of this situation in 2020. But if you are born in 2020, maybe you won't be in 2050 because our world is getting warmer and warmer. And now, especially climate activists are actually growing, and fossil fuel field is also an area where we have to take a step. And actually, we have to respond. And the answer that we are looking for is this environmental education. Here is a good resource. Dear Bayındır wrote this, and this is from Tele Publications. It is about the ecological, economic, and cultural solutions people are looking for. This is about the best examples on the world with biomimics. We have to take the basis of the planet's functioning and we have to provide this basic education to children. We have to take this action urgently because it's a very critical, essential area that we all have to take responsibility. Why? Because there will be ecological poverty, starvation. Of course, within the scope of political and climate change policies, right now I'm working on the proceedings in my doctoral dissertation. Patrick Offels also is a political theoretician, and this book by Patrick is also very useful, and I would like to recommend that you review this resource, because if people want to continue this life together with the other beings in the world, everyone, every child in life should know about ecology. Ecological education should be at the heart of everywhere, in education and in business. What about sustainable development? In 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals were announced, but it has a long history. I don't want to repeat, but what we wanted is this. In 2015, we started this. And actually, we were trying to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals before 2015. And we have known for a long time that global crises were coming. The scientists, the science world was telling us that already, but it was important to communicate, to increase awareness through education, and technological innovative transformation is significant in raising this awareness about sustainable development. There is a limit of 1.5 degree limit targeted by the Paris Agreement, but we have approximately 5 years to go over that target. So we have a big issue. That's why our target was to create awareness, and with a magical, so to speak, approach, we could become a compatible entity with the planet. But unfortunately, with our report that we published, unfortunately, we will exceed these limits, and 2030 targets, unfortunately, are now going backwards, especially after the pandemic. So no matter what we do, education is critical. And for a long time about education, we have been working, but we really underline that it's critical to accelerate education. That's why the fourth Sustainable Development Goal is critical, and education is important, and it is often repeated in international texts and about global education. Civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and institutions are always referring to this, but unfortunately, it's just new in the global agenda. In politics, there is something called carrying to the agenda. However, well, dear Burcu says economy is not at the center, but when we have economical damage or loss, or when we understand that we will lose votes in political issues, then we start to take a more careful approach to these issues. Paris Agreement Item 12, United Nations Framework Contract, was accepted in 1994, and according to the 4th and 5th and 6th articles, states, governments are undertaking responsibilities. We have to go back to these articles, and in 4 and 7 of the Sustainable Development Goals, there is a concept that we say Mission 7. It is a legal base, actually, and we work on this issue as well. And I would like to talk about education for sustainable development. There are so many definitions. It is about learning, sustainability, education for sustainable development, so on and so forth. It goes, but the core is that when we say education for sustainable development, it means that we have to continue life by internalizing nature. Once again, we have to learn from nature, and we have to be applying them in a moral sense, and we have to provide this perspective to our children. This is what exactly we are doing at SDSN. And in the previous, the former UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Professor Dr. Jeffrey was the leading in this initiative, and we undertook this initiative, and our purpose is to integrate university, society, to the initiatives of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and to provide technical solutions, and to integrate dissemination methods and develop projects in this field, and to encourage both students and academicians. And our purpose is to integrate these issues in our classes and to provide solutions and to conduct solution research. And we also aim to understand the issues, as Sergio mentioned, in business world and also in other sectors. We have to explain how this affects other sectors. In fact, we can see university as a small city. And first of all, we should look at ourselves, and together with new innovative technological studies, our aim is to create pressure on the policy-making process. Here, we see our research, education, operation, governance, and leadership aims, and in this regard, universities have critical role. We have 2 reports. If you're curious, you can check our reports, and they really show us how to proceed in this regard. And we also focus on learning and evidence-based research and the role of university. For us, data are quite important. We conduct serious studies in terms of climate, and we also have a share in laying the groundworks for the Green Deal, European Green Deal. We also provided views. The Paris Agreement as SDSI global network. We are not only focusing on Turkey, we have a horizontal organization across the world, and we have a very strong communication network. You can instantly access data, and I recommend you to visit the SDSN Today website. There are so many details, but I especially want to underline the Global Schools program. And this provides the opportunity not only to children, but also young people. In fact, we try to draw them to the business world in the public industry or municipalities. We start with internship. That in that regard, that communication is important and networking is quite important. That's why our name is that. In addition to that, I would like to show certain partners universities, and we have young youth organizations. Right now, we have a new initiatives. This is in line with the zero emission initiative of Turkey. We started the zero emission initiative, and on net zero on campus guys is available right now. It is in English, but we are translating it in Turkish. This can be read, and it of course includes establishing a committee, and of course that should be in compliance with the country's objectives. But I think universities should be much more brave in this regard. And holistic school approach, as Erdem mentioned, it is quite important because it's not only if one teacher knows this, it should be internalized by the top managers, and that should be there should be the involvement of every stakeholder in that environment. UNESCO recommended the 2020-2030 roadmap, and the action fields are actually in being implemented with this project, because we try to develop policies, and it's really valuable to create learning environments. And you also prepare projects to train the trainers, educators, and we have so many organizations to educate young people from Yuva and Yuva Association and from Turmepa. I don't want to miss them because this will create inequality. I want to be fair, but in real sense, we have to be very proud. In COP31, HOPA, the party's climate conference, is a platform where Turkey is candidate, and we are very strong in this regard. We have a soft policy opportunity in terms of education. This is a valuable opportunity for us. We will conduct works, and we say stop taking to reduce emissions, and you have to explain how much you reduce emissions. As much as that, in COP26 and 27, within the framework of the decisions taken, we also have steps to strengthen climate and what are countries doing in terms of climate. So in the parties summit, the countries will be asked to explain what they're doing. I think this is a great opportunity, and I hope we will host this event. We have our Sustainable Development Global Schools program. Let me briefly introduce this program. Within the framework of what has been discussed so far, we have the equal education perspective, and we help parents and children to understand what they can do in terms of sustainable development. We also explain the needs of environment and nature, and in this context, as universities, After the pandemic, of course, there was this online education opportunity or environment. Well, it may not sound nice, but we turned this into an opportunity. And we had the opportunity to access thousands of children, not only in Turkey, but across the world. Professor Dr. Leman Kurnaz was the leader in this project. And this was for Turkish-speaking children, this part of the project, and it's really important because they're internalizing the issue when they learn. It's not only about children, and educators or teachers are quite important as well, because what gives you the freedom to and the bravery, you understand the transformation. The Erdem mentioned transformative education, and the most critical actor in this transformation is teachers. And for them, we provide a lot of education and training, and we have our professors conducting these trainings. We teach this issue at school or in non-governmental associations, organizations, or the education world. And again, as Erdem mentioned, we call it a solidarity, a mobility to act for the climate change, against the climate change. And I said this is an investment policy, and we try to use it in this context, and we try to disseminate this education. And the education titled Sustainable Development Goals and Climate Mobility will start in 12th of October. If you are interested, and you can join, and students and teachers in the Ministry of National Education and teacher candidates can join as in Boğaziçi University's roof organization, and we recommend you to follow. And also parents are also within the scope of our global school initiative, and all the sustainable development goals are translated into Turkish with the initiative of UNESCO. It is important to understand, to feel and behave, and to ensure this. There are so many best practices, and we make it possible to follow. We made resources, we created resources for our teachers, and the green resources book was prepared as well, and we conducted workshops for sustainable life, and we had the opportunity to listen to a lot of non-governmental organizations, and we had the opportunity to learn about their activities as the World Economic Forum. We also discussed the needs and skills necessary. The European Green Deal is critical in this sense because an education field is created, and in this year, the industrial plan included one of the most important titles. It is to develop competencies and skills, and in this sense, it is also important to develop skills in the education field. It doesn't only require the non-governmental organizations. The public and the private sector have a critical role as well, and the European Union provides finances here, and these are the skills contracts, and there are certain activities under this title. And to wrap up, the European Union gives a lot of importance to these topics. These are very valuable works that they published. And in terms of skills, the UK is taking certain steps, advanced steps. Erdem gave examples, and Turkey is also conducts works. And there is also the K-12 skills framework, and it handles a lot of literacy issues. It's a thick document. It's a bit difficult to understand, but when you engross yourself, you understand why it is important. It's an invaluable work, and we have to involve children and young people because from the stage of design, they know the needs very well, and also it's important. There was a declaration published, and it's not our future, it should be now. Our future is in our hands altogether. That's why we should urgently work together with a red alarm. And the number of these activities should be increased. Thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry if I exceeded my time. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Thank you very much. You exceeded your time a bit, but I think it was a very efficient presentation, and I think this was inspiration for many people here. And I learned many new processes thanks to your presentation. Thank you. And now we will have an online speaker again, Tremeur Denigot. Tremeur will talk, and he is representing from the Education from Climate Coalition from the European Commission, and he will talk about a sustainable environment, education and best practices and approaches, and he received teaching education, and for approximately 20 years, he had experience in different education systems and organizations, and in the last 10 years, he has been serving as a policy expert, and right now he is in the Partner Research Center in European Commission and Education for Climate Coalition, and the purpose is to bring education with environment and to integrate the concept of sustainability into education and education systems, and to adapt education systems into the sustainability approaches. Tremeur, welcome.
Thank you, Erdem. You can hear me? Works?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, very well.
good. So I'm very glad to be here. And first of all, I want to give you a very warm thank for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to explain what the European Union is doing in terms of teaching and learning for the green transition and sustainable development. But before I start, because I was listening very carefully to the precedent presentation, very interesting, I put down a few keywords to my view, which is really what's being repeated and repeated, but what we have to do. I mean, holistic is a very important one, of course, because we need to embrace the complexity of such a complex agenda. And education for sustainable development can't be an agenda which is, I mean, exists on its own. It has got to be linked to the others, of course, because at the end of the day, we're talking about education transformation. So collaboration is more the second keyword, which is absolutely key. And we're all facing the same challenges. So we've got to share ideas, initiatives, experiences more than ever, because there are a lot of things happening out there that are very, very interesting. And of course, courage and stamina, because what we're facing is a paradigmatic change, and we need to do a lot of things, of course, to get where we have to go. Education for sustainable development, and let me share my screen at the same moment, is not something new. Our friends from the UN, from UNESCO in particular, have been talking about that for almost 40 years now. There were changes, certainly, but it takes time. And it's true that education systems are big machineries, and it takes really a lot of time to change things. But the good news is, and that's really something I firmly believe, and I'm meeting a lot of people, of course, that's my daily job. So from Europe and from beyond, working on education for sustainable development, we all share the view that there's a sort of momentum. The awareness is increasing by the day, and we can witness, to tell the truth, it has been the case for the last 2 years in particular, a multiplication of initiatives, be it institutional, big initiatives, or tiny initiatives at school level, but happening that are very full of hope, I should say. So let me focus now on what the European Union is doing, because what we need for sure is action. So I start from there. I will be very short because you all know that, of course, but that was the big push, but and also the frame for the EU policies that have been developed for the last 5 years, which is the Green Deal. And you can see, of course, on the left, the target that you all know. So that's an amazing change that we need to do. So it's not just about changing industry or job market, it's about changing society. So this is why the question that comes next, of course, is this one, which is what about education? So the Yuva Association were kind enough to make a translation. So I put it in Turkish so that you can better read these very interesting stats who come from a study we developed 2 years ago when we were drafting the council recommendation that I will talk about in a minute. And as you can see there, that's obvious that citizens, EU citizens, do firmly believe that environment is a key topic. But I think the last stat is the most interesting one, which is you see that 3 out of 4 Europeans think that education and training is the most important sector to help people understand and take action on climate change. The problem is that, that's also something I hear a lot when I'm talking to students in particular, but also teachers. They tell me what you can see at the bottom of that slide, and they tell me the thing is that we fail to prepare most of the students, because we don't have a tool for it. We don't have a system that are adapted to that to tackle climate change and protect the environment. And that's, of course, a big issue. Most of the teachers I was meeting, we've been building a community of practice I'm going to explain in a minute. And we met a lot of people, a lot of teachers, a lot of students. And most of the teachers I was meeting when we were designing that community of practice more than 2 years ago were telling me the same thing. They were super convinced professionals, very committed, but they were telling me in most of the cases that they were doing that on their free time because they didn't have the ability, the possibility to embed the climate education they wanted to do within the syllabus and the timetable. So that's an issue. So what did we do? Everything started really with the European education area. And there was a communication that was done in September 2020 about achieving the European education area by 2025. And as you can see on the right of that screen, you see the objectives, the targets, and you see obviously that green and digital transition was among these targets. And this is ever since what we have been developing. So you see on that slide what I'm going to explain in detail. I will try not to take too much of time, and anyway, the organizer will share that presentation with you. So you see there various tools, and this is what we need. We need political tools, we need technical tools, we need financial tools, but we need also communities, and that's what I'm going to explain now. So the first thing, which was something absolutely key, as you know, I've got to remind you maybe, at European Union level, we are developing policies, but we are not tackling, of course, all sectors on all topics. So when it comes to education, education is something which is a responsibility for the member states. So there's no exclusive competence at European Union level regarding education. It does not mean that we can't do things. And there's a support which is given at EU level for the member states to develop various policies. So the Council recommendation was a political tool. It might seem a bit boring, but that's something which is absolutely needed. It's basically a text where the member states are telling themselves what they should do together to achieve common goals. And that Council recommendation was key. It was on learning for the green transition, on sustainable development. And I invite you to read it because it's an interesting document. It's not just about the fact that that text is telling that education for sustainable development should be a priority, because obviously that's the very start in order to have the funding, investment needed, but also to develop the various initiatives that will give the possibility to achieve such a goal. That text is also interesting because it's very much about the recommendations that go into details of what should be done in terms really of pedagogy. And you can see on that slide, there was a very interesting study that was developed to accompany that Council recommendation, was making this recommendation that were then taken on board in the Council recommendation. And you will see on that slide a lot of keywords, hands-on on experiential learning, empowerment of young people, having a lifelong learning approach, etc. Among all things you already know, but it's going into that direction, which is a very interesting one. And to go back to what Erdem was saying, I mean, if you see the list of these various sections, you understand that we're talking about education transformation there. The Commission, of course, had his homework to do because the Council is asking the Commission in every recommendation to take some actions. And the actions being taken at the moment are following, of course, this recommendation. As you can see here again, we can use different tools. You see there Erasmus tools, for instance, Erasmus Plus. We can boost green dimension of Erasmus Plus, which is what we're doing. We have to monitor also on report on progress, but we have got to have also very much to foster collaboration. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. Research is being done, and there's a EU working group that has been set up by the colleagues from the Education Department of the European Commission, which is a very interesting one. It gives the possibility to representatives from the member states, with together with experts, to engage in a conversation on work on making some recommendation in order to help then the member states to accomplish some reforms. So that's a very important tool. The research comes with it. As you can see here, various examples of research that has been developed. And of course, all these reports are totally accessible. So I invite you to have a look at it. The one in the middle in particular is particularly interesting to my view. There are other research that are coming. So as you can see, there's one in particular. I mean, that's a personal consideration. I'm very much interested in the last one. A research that will give us some ideas on the friction or the synergies, of course, between the green and the digital agenda. That's the second one, sorry. But there will be also other researchers, as you can see. Then, of course, Erasmus+. As you might know, the European Parliament has decided to nearly double the funding of Erasmus+. So we've got a lot more budget to propose some initiatives, and 70% of the budget is for mobility opportunities, but you have also 30% of the budget for cooperation projects. And which is important for us, there's a part, an objective, of course, which is clearly on green. This is a new tool that has been developed. That's something also which is very interesting. Erasmus+ Teacher Academies, with a very strong focus on teachers' learning, and they gather experts and teachers together working on various topics and digging into these topics. So for instance, we have 3 teachers at the moment, academies, Erasmus+ Teacher Academy, sorry, that are tackling that very issue of sustainability. This is a very interesting tool. I invite you, so if you have a smartphone, you can use the hashtag on top, top right of the screen. This is the European Sustainability Competence Framework. It has been developed together with the Council recommendation I was talking about before. So it's a technical tool. It's something which is absolutely necessary if you design a syllabus, if you, develop any sort of initiatives and you want to assess specific competences. What are the competences that are the one I'm supposed to assess when it comes to sustainability? That tool, which is a conceptual tool, can help you in that process. So it defined 4 areas of competences that you can see with these different colors. Oh, sorry, because I've got, thank you to the organizers. That's amazing. I mean, that translation is just superb. So as you can see there, you've got the 4 colors that are the competence areas that define 12 competences that are related to sustainability, that comes with descriptors and also with examples in terms of knowledge, skills, and attitude. We call it KSA. I invite you warmly to read that report. That's interesting, just for you to have an idea. That's what it is. I mean, that's just an example of what it is. You see in that slide 4 example of competences. There are, of course, 8 more. There are 12 in total. And if you look, no, sorry, but they are there on the second column, sorry. On the left, you see the competence area, and on the column competence, you see the 12 competences. Let's take one, for instance. 2.1, systems thinking. That's a key competence, and you have a definition for it. And then you will have at the end of the report a lot of examples when it comes to knowledge, the skills and attitudes that have got to be fostered, promoted regarding systems thinking. There's no order in that, of course, competence framework. We have to tackle all these competences at once. Some competences are very well known. I used to be a history teacher, so I didn't expect, I didn't have to wait for Greencomb to tell me that I had to promote critical thinking. But critical thinking is obviously one of the competences that are also linked to sustainability. So that's a very interesting tool. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot there was a Turkish translation, but anyway, you will get the presentation. So, and then I want to take a bit of time on that, and I will stop on that, which is education for climate. So I've been listening to the people before explaining that we have to empower teachers and students and give them the possibility really to to be actors of change. And that's the main goal of such a community of practice that we're developing. We've been developing that for 2 years. As you can see on that slide, these are the various things you can do. That community is facilitated by an online platform, and I warmly invite all of you to join. It's based on individual registration, and you will find there at the moment 6,000 members who are teachers, students, on education stakeholders, and all together these people are sharing, of course, information, but also ideas, and they can engage in co-creation processes. What can happen with that platform depends on you. We are not there to tell you what to do. You've got to take that tool, use it, and make something out of it. And we're there to help you. We've developed recently a dedicated group focusing only on green competences on Green Comp, the competence framework I was talking about before. We are also, because we're always developing some new initiatives, because it's an iteration process, we're developing also Education for Climate Talks, which is giving the floor to top experts on education for sustainable development to feed the debate and the reflection on education for sustainable development. We also recently developed a dedicated group for young people who told us that they wanted to be a bit alone to try to work together on various topics. The first one was on fast fashion. So you will understand, and I will end there, that I warmly invite you to join that community. It's not just about the platform. We are meeting on a very frequent basis. We are meeting every month, the community members in the community cafe. As you see, the next one will be in the 11th of October. We are doing the same thing with Green Con Cafe, just to focus on green competences. Once you will be registered, we do also onboarding session every Friday, so that you feel safe in that community, because we want to have a process of registration which is not that easy. So as to be sure that the people joining are real people, first of all, because we also have to check that, and professionals interested in education for sustainable development. And we have 2 main events a year. The first one is a policy forum, where we want to have, sticking to our participatory approach, which is the bottom line in all what we're doing. So in spring, we do a policy forum to have policy officers meeting practitioners coming from the field, and to compare their views on trying to co-design things together. And at the end of the year, and I invite you already to that one, that will be on the 15th of November, we're doing what we call the Education for Climate Days, which is the big party, if you want, of that community of practice, where people are coming from all over the world and the European Union to share ideas around various topics, and to try to promote education for climate education. So I will stop here, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tremeur. Evet, bu kadar dinledikten sonra artık...
Yes, after listening to our panelists, you have the floor for your remarks, questions, and comments. We would appreciate if you can introduce yourself and your institution kindly, and then you can tell who your question is for. Can we give out the microphone? Thank you. Sorry for taking your time. Bahadır Yasa. Here I am representing the Natural Life or Wildlife Association. Since 2016, we had 19 project implementations together with the European Union, United Nations, embassies, and other institutions. But when it comes to this very topic, we want to expand it further. I mean, we have just completed another project with the embassy. The moderator is now talking about this topic. The European Union is taking another decision. The governments are adopting certain directives and such. But when it comes to taking it top to bottom, for example, the village people, we don't see it going there. They are throwing the window. They are taking the trash and throwing it through the window to the river. They say the river is taking it away. Where? To the Bayram or another place. That's why we wanted to start the awareness of climate change in the village with children and women. Because if you teach them what it is, I mean, for example, you are able to create compost, right? Harvest rainwater, like repairing your old items rather than keeping buying stuff. I do not mean to bore you with so many examples, but yes, these were the initiatives. So we want to take it from bottom up. We want to ensure that people's voices are heard, right? We can go to towns, we can go to cities, we can go up to municipalities and then governorships. This is the sort of consideration and approach we adopt. I just wanted to emphasize it. Sorry for taking up your time. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think there is another hand here. Hi. Geleceği Paylaş Civil Initiative Share Future. I have two questions. One is for Ms. Bahar. Civil initiatives, can they become a member of your network or is it just about universities and legal entities? Another question is for Ms. Burcu. She referred to a World Citizenship Conference, but the history and, sorry, the date and place can also be shared maybe. Thank you very much. Oya Hanım, thank you very much for the beautiful question. SDSN network membership requires you to be a university and research institution. Yes, there are institutions we accept from an NGO background, but they need to have a research-focused initiative. And membership to network is free of charge, but we have a leadership council in the network and we can take on institutions here if you believe you are effective, of course, without brainwashing. Otherwise, we can better, address and experience the issues. So we try to do our best by taking into such, dimensions. Economy and policy and environmental policy are all interacting with each other. And here we are showing the European Green Deal here for that very reason. I mean, decarbonization and building policies are all included from this perspective. Unless we develop a competence and teach it, then this is all forgotten. We wrote down many projects, right? We created many plans, like a development plan or another initiative. Unless we enhance the capacity there and ensure that the responsibility is created from childhood, then the things cannot go further. That's why on the educational side, research side, and other initiatives, we want to ensure that we can communicate all this through a forum. We evaluate and assess, inputs through an international stakeholdership, and then act accordingly. Thank you. Burcu? Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much for your question. Let me share it briefly. Ekin Gamze Gencer is my colleague who is present in the hall, and she can inform you about the details by maybe raising her hand. On October 21st, Sabancı University, we will hold a conference. It will be entitled World Citizenship for registration and workshop. Sign up. You can monitor the information on the website. There is a change this year. When you come to the conference, you will actually listen to the intellectual and practical insights of experts from different fields, but also we shared various bulletins and documents. If the COSA team deems it appropriate, I would like to share those documents. I would like to share the links, but you can also find all those resources on the website. Certainly, most certainly, we can do that. I would like to thank you for your invitation. Ataşehir Municipality. I'm the Director of Climate Change and Zero Waste Department, Ayten Kartal. For a long period, we haven't attended this meeting because we have been bored with the same discussions, but I loved the insights here, and I love the word greenwashing. We move away from realities, right? And just beat around the bush. And it's very boring. Our goals must be quite different. So as Ataşehir municipality in Istanbul, we are exerting our best efforts. Of course, we have shortcomings because we are working with a political mentality. Regardless of how different your intentions are, you need to reach common points. But I'm a lucky director. The municipality does not interfere with us. The mayor does not interfere with our actions. How can we work with Yuva though? How can we create a common journey? I mean, to make contributions and to get contributions. Have you ever worked with municipalities? I think we need to contact Miss Ece after the meeting, right? Do you have any recommendations to make? I mean, we will appreciate if we can hear. Together with Istanbul Development Agency and Istanbul University, we created an innovative development, plan in one of poor neighborhoods, Ferhat Pasha neighborhood. We have launched our trainings. I mean, we are looking at rain harvest, wind energy, solar energy generation options, sustainable agriculture. We have a garden. Also, we deliver certain engineering focused trainings. We are at the beginning of this journey. We are trying to achieve things, but I wanted to get to know you. That's why I took the floor. I agree with the gentleman from another association. Unfortunately, I was in a Kastamonu village this year. We collected our trash, and I said, "Where are we gonna throw them?" They said, "We throw it to the creek." I said, uh, I was very surprised. They said the trash collection system doesn't make it here. Yo, so this is not the problem, right? So we got those trashes, we put them in our cars, and we did not throw them to the creek. But there is such a stark reality, and I wanted to emphasize it. So the citizens, the residents living in that village need to develop that awareness. That's a responsibility, but we need to also ensure that the mechanisms are in place. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, you can have multiple partnerships with Yuva Association. We have trainers training, for example. So at a municipality or town hall, town council, we can, spread such training uh, modules so we can deliver trainers training to do that. And as an output for this project, we created plenty of curricula. You can utilize those curricula. We have another initiative, which is the Climate Museum. So you can use it as a training material by requesting it from our association. We can still do many other things that I cannot think of right now. Of course, the means of your municipality would be important. We are open to any collaboration. We work with, for example, Kadıköy municipality and metropolitan municipality in Gazhane. Many actually trainings to create a common awareness is supported by Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality. So we can make announcements for people who would like to receive trainings. I mean, we can deliver those trainings as well. Here, what matters is that we reach out to a certain number of adults or youths. And some people can also, arrange an educational setup. Otherwise, we can personally come and deliver such trainings. You can get in touch with Miss Ece, as you stated. Hi, Ufuk Manoğlu, Lawyers for Universal Rights Association. I'm joining this meeting from Mersin. If we take a step back, actually, I would like to make an introduction first. Hopefully, I'm not going to make this, sort of far-fetched presentation. But here we need to tell about climate we need to tell about preserving nature when it comes to education. Why? Because it manifests such need to be preserved. We first need to see the indicators, right? So when it comes to polluters, uh, carbon emitters, and perils, we need to come up with a solution that will involve the literacy of the current and future generations, because this is a current threat. And eco-anxiety was one of the concepts addressed, so we can tie all this to eco-anxiety. But still, when it comes to environmental literacy and when it comes to the perpetrator of a natural threat, this sort of struggle, we need to carry on. I mean, and we see the examples in Akbelen with mining areas, quarry areas, to get the same with the hydroelectricity plant, and also other incidents. So there needs to be a struggle in place. Whoever cuts down the trees, whoever creates a quarry there, actually are sort of perpetrators. So where does this struggle stand in terms of environmental literacy? That's my question. This is a question for all. Whoever wants to take, they can answer. Well, let me go back to our speakers then. Who would like to answer? I would like to answer it. Okay, go ahead then. I thought I would start after you, Ufuk. Hi, thank you very much for this critical question about the perpetrator. I think this question needs to be placed at the center of any educational initiative. At the beginning, actually, we referred to the fact of creating solutions which lead to other problems, right? So when it comes to the perpetrator or agency, here the solution is deemed necessary for individuals, and that means making those systems and mechanisms invisible to start with, right? Because they are the creator of the problems. And here you take the attention from entities, governments, and relevant bodies to other directions. And actually, I address it as part of deliberate, forgetfulness or deliberate ignorance. When you look at the current educational system in Turkey, unfortunately, the question you asked cannot be included in the formal educational system. That's why our meeting today needs to address both formal and non-formal educational initiatives. And then we must emphasize that they interact with each other and that they cannot be separated from each other. And we can, come up with solutions only with a mutual perspective. So your question applies to another question, because we don't have enough space in the formal education, as I stated. Selective environmental and climate change course was created in the curriculum, and we evaluated the content with the experts, although we didn't make it public yet. But I can clearly say that we find this course insufficient. But one of the main questions was like this: in this course, a child who lives next to thermal plants in Kahramanmaraş may want to take action, be an activist, right? May want to use the uh, get information, have peaceful protest and such. So where does it all stand in the educational system? We asked, and we believe that these are critical questions. So again, environmental issues and nature-related issues cannot present the problem by themselves, but rather when they are addressed, through a citizenship approach. Otherwise, you can go to greenwashing, or you can just, redirect the target, manipulate the target. I appreciate your question a lot in this sense. I mean, in non-formal education, yeah, we have such initiatives and campaigns, but we must definitely make sure that they are included in the formal educational system as well. Thank you very much for the question. My apologies. This is me again. For example, what the previous speaker said is great. I mean, the approaches and such are all sounding great. But when it comes to taking it down, taking it to the bottom, it may take maybe 6 years. So we ask this. We ask you to go there and work with the village people, with the producers themselves, so that they can do things without chemicals, without toxic agents. Let's show it to them and let's do it together. We say, I mean, we have been trying to do it for the last decade. And and there's another thing that makes me very sad. We are all here, right? Gathering to discuss and address concepts and issues. All of us have ideas. But what about the operation? Where does it lead to? We don't see concrete results there. I mean, yeah, we need to see the practice. We are talking about wheat, right, which has been cultivated here. This was taken to this mill, and then it was cooked over there and sold as bread. Unless we are able to show that, then the discussion is over. I settled down in Cazgirler Köyü, Bayramca. Women never look at me. They just look the other way on the road. Then if you say you make fishy and you make another thing, I mean, when I started seed exchange and such, they started to see money in their pockets, and village people would listen to you. As soon as they see that money in their pocket, then they would ask me, don't we have any expos? Won't we go to those expos? These were the ladies who didn't greet me before. So you need to create justifications for people. You need to create reasons for people and then teach accordingly. You're just throwing the trash through the window. You can't just say, what are you doing? They're, they say the creek is taking it to the Bayram Dam. They don't care. So you need to explain it in a very reasonable way and instill it, as they say it in English. For years, we've been exerting efforts for that direction. Hopefully, we made a few contributions. But that takes me to the same place. We are always talking, we are always taking decisions, considerations, the European Union and such, but the individuals aren't aware of our discussions, right? So we must ensure that we can simplify it for everyone. Sorry again for this many contributions. Thank you.
Söz istedi, ona bir söz
Thank
vereyim.
you. I think Burcu wanted to speak, and then we'll go back to the room, to the hall. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks. I want to add something, but our speaker, gentleman, mentioned his study. Of course, I will not underestimate this, because each and every act is important. The one in the village and the one in the city is important. We should never forget that. We should be aware of a system that makes these villagers to this poison, and there is no other solution than being dependent on this poison. This depends on the system and the Ministry of Agriculture and Forest. And if we just ignore these parts that are using this poison, we cannot solve this problem. So I just wanted to underline this. We have to see all of the parties involved. Thank you. Burcu, yes, please.
İklim öncülerinden Yeşim Sarıkaya ben.
Yeşim Sarıkaya from Climate Activists. Well, I would like to ask this question to all speakers and activists. In the previous slides, in the last speaker's slide, we saw that 94% of Europe believe that it is necessary to work on climate crisis. It was similar. But what I see around is that people who were never interested in the climate crisis were antipathetic to this. And this surprises me a lot. And there are some works of activists, and there is hatred against activists in this regard. This is what I observe. I think there is something missing. I think activists are not realizing a gap, and I also consider this myself. So rather than taking care, why is there an antipathy? I think we should all think about this, and if there is any idea, I would love to hear this. Thank you. Thank you. I agree, actually. We have to consider this issue because, yes, and by the way, there is another research. It's a global research, and it is from recent times. I would talk about the numbers and the Turkish figures. Well, the 86% of Turkish society have concern about the impact of climate change. So it's one of the societies that has the highest concern when it comes to the impacts of climate change. But when a person takes action to do something about the climate change, as you say, there is some kind of suspicion against climate activists, or there is antipathy. Of course, we have to look at the root causes of this. I can say that because it's not, maybe this is about the personal feelings of a person, or is it because of certain resources pushed? I don't know how to express this. This data or misleading data may be disseminating from wrong resources. We have to look at this. There is this reverse campaign. Who is doing this and why are they doing this? We have to look at this. I read an interesting article about this recently. Yeşil Güne Bakan, I guess. They made a long translation. It was an interesting translation, especially the populist right wing are organizing in global scale, and especially think tanks. They're using think tanks to disseminate this idea regarding the climate activists. Of course, it's not based, they say that the climate change is not resulting from human beings. In a way, they try to show climate activists bad. There is this campaign coming from the bottom, actually. We have to realize this as well. We shouldn't miss this out. And to what extent people around us are affected by this, and we have to be careful about this, and we can also develop counter arguments. But of course, there are some action types, and that they can be interpreted differently in different countries. And I think climate activists must be careful about this. I say this as a very experienced person in climate activists. My first activism was during COP6, so just make the calculation.
Vermek isteyen varsa.
Of course, if there is any other speaker who wants to answer, they can go. Can I add something? Yes, please, Burcu. Well, I think this is a very important question as well. I want to give an example. From Bilgi University Children's Studies and Roots and Shoots Turkey conducted a work on participant and climate safety. The project has just finished, and what you say is a very serious problem. Child rights have very multiple dimensions because, as you know, especially in social media, there is hatred speech as well. In that regard, we have to see problems that young people and children are experiencing. And there was a process to find a solution to these hatred speeches. I know this example. Maybe there are other good examples from the whole. So together with this example, I can say we have to have a holistic approach, and we have to learn by inspiring from this. And I think it will be useful to look into this project as well. Thank you. Tremeur, would you like to say anything?
Yes. Very interesting question, because that's a question that comes often. My advice would be to having a focus on schools. This is my focus. That we should avoid at any cost to have a moral approach, I should say, on the issue of environment. and politics has got to stay outside the schools, which does not mean, and go back to Green Comp I was introducing before, but we don't have to work very much on political agency, which is to give the skills for the students to become political actors. That's something different. So that they can navigate, I read you the definition, navigate the political system, identify political responsibility and accountability on sustainable behaviors, and demand effective policies for sustainability. So it's not about discriminating between the good and the bad. I mean, if we do that at education level, that would be a disaster. It's about equipping the students, giving them the tools to become the actors, the professionals and the citizens that can make a change. And this is what we definitely have to do, basing all what we're doing on evidence, of course, on science.
Thank you, Tremeur.
Erdem, Tremeur sözü almışken ben de Tremeur...
Now that Tremeur mentioned, can I ask a question to Tremeur? Can you hear? Well, the European Union has the carbon credit agreement, and they started to take certain measures in Turkey, and there is new climate regulation update. However, this climate action is facing a great resistance in Turkey, and the industry doesn't want this act, this regulation, because of economic reasons. They are resisting. So in the European Union, the states, how are they against this rejection, and how are they successful against the resistance? And was there a reaction in the industrial organizations, companies, and the education sector in carbon credit agreement? What kind of a role did the education system play in this regard? Could you please share?
Yes, but I think I'm going to repeat myself, because it's not for the education system, for the school to answer the resistances that exist and the opposition to policies that can foster some environmental measures. I mean, this is for the parliament to deal with, and the citizens voting on their representatives. I mean, but for what regards what's happening at education level, again, I mean, the education system is supposed to provide the students with all the competences they need to become the citizens we need. And political agency, again, is one of the competences which is definitely very important. So this is where the education system can play a role in raising the awareness, of course, of the students, giving them the knowledge they need, but also in changing their behaviors. And for that, they need these competences. And then they will decide for which sort of policy they want to promote or resist. This is not on us to decide for them. They are free citizens, but they need to have these competences. And I'm not sure they have that at the moment.
Thank you, Tremeur. 15 dakika zaten süremizi
So
aştık.
we have exceeded our time, 15 minutes, and we'll have another opportunity to interact in the afternoon. We will talk about the future of COSA. It is possible to touch upon these topics as well. If there is any other opinion or question, please, let's get the final round. And please keep it short, because we have exceeded our time.
All right, we agree all on that, and the things that we should do forward. But what has been done so far and what has been achieved, if you'd be so kind to give us a report on that, we'll be grateful.
Tremeur, did you hear that? Duydun mu?
I'm sorry, my connection is not very good. I'm not sure I understood the question. I'm sorry about that. Could you repeat the question?
I think the question was, what has been done in terms of education for sustainability in Europe until now, and what would you say has been achieved? But please, it's a very broad question, so
okay.
Can you?
So, I mean, I invite you to share my presentation, because my presentation was about that. I mean, I was trying to list all the actions that have been led at European Union level regarding education for sustainable development. And as you've seen, there were many actions being led, be it at political level or at more technical, I should say, level. But remember, keep in mind again that when it comes to education in the European Union, this is this is a responsibility of the member states. So there's no possibility to design any sort of binding commitment at EU level and then to transfer that or translate that into concrete actions at a member state. It's a common effort. You have the EU and you have the member states, and all together we're moving towards common objectives, even if, of course, the implementations is different from one country to another. So I think the last years have been very interesting because, as a matter of fact, and that was again the purpose of my presentation, many actions have been led, which give us some hope. But I can't agree more. I agree with you in saying that there's still a lot to do, but we will get there.
Teşekkürler, çok teşekkür ediyorum bütün
Thank you very much. I would like to thank all the speakers and thank you for accepting our invitation and thank you for sharing your ideas and opinions. We are grateful. Before the lunch break, I think Ece have a few technical reminders. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your participation. See you in the afternoon. Hello again. I would like to remind our Zoom participants and YouTube participants, thank you for listening to us. And I would like to thank all the speakers of EU Turkey delegation and Kyoto Club. I would like to thank our teammates and technical team as well. Thank you for your efforts. I would like to thank our interpreters. And I would like to thank Java, our organization team. I cannot skip them in this beautiful organization. And of course, I would like to thank Dedeman Hotel for hosting us. Now, there is the issue of leaving the room. We have exceeded our time as well. But if you're accommodating in this hotel, you'll have to check out. That Ms. Darya from the organization team will support us as much as possible. We have tried to create a sustainable environment. It's a bit difficult in Turkey. It was easy in Italy, where we visited. Our foods are vegetarian. Please use your badges. They're in plastic. We are sorry for that. If you will leave, please leave the badges on the registration desk. In addition to that, I would like to say advocacy document is in limited numbers. Unfortunately, some people do not have it. And as the first job on Monday, we will give you an assessment form for the conference and we will send you the advocacy document. And please fill in the assessment form because feedback is very important for us. We would be happy to do so. And we will have a lunch break. We have exceeded our time, but we still have an hour lunch break, and we would like to continue our conversation there. We would be happy if you could stay. And after that, together with COSA members, exactly 1 hour after this, we'll be in 2 groups, in 10 to 2, and we would like to discuss this. And the Turkish discussion will be here. The English discussion will be just across the hall. It is just across the hall. You go by the reception and it will be in that room. You will see the signs in front of the rooms. There is direction. And here there will be Turkish discussion and we will discuss what can be done within the body of COSA. And in the other room, we will discuss what can be done in terms of COSA in Europe. So this is Turkish room, the other one is English room. There is no interpretation. So COSA members can participate. If you're not a COSA member, you can also participate as observers. And other than that, I think there is nothing else I need to remind you. Maybe my friends, my colleagues will say anything? No. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yemekte hemen karşısı. Yemek
And the
ikram.
lunch is just across. We have the lunch at across the hall.
Hoşça kalın. Hoşça kalın.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Have a nice day.